Hosting for the Dice Tower is generously provided by Cool Stuff Inc. Cool stuff in stock at coolstuffinc.com. Thanks for your support. Oh, hey, Future Eric here, with a quick correction. I hope you enjoyed last week's episode with Jorge Garcia. We were discussing our top 10 games, top 10 card art examples in games, and it was a terrific discussion. And if you were following along, Tom got ready to talk about what our contributors wanted to say about their favorite art in games. And then that just never happened. Jorge interrupted with an anecdote, which was great, and then for some reason, it just jumps to the end of the show. This was an editing error, and I have been given note from Tom, fix it. So, I don't like to do this too often, but I'm going to power up the Wayback Machine, and we're going to go back to the end of last week's episode 459, and we're going to pretend that this all never happened and get to the wonderful content that our contributors and the People's Choice selections had, and we just didn't want to skip over that. So we're going to finish up episode 459 right now, and then we'll get to 460. Here we go.
All right, let's see what our contributors
I want to say one more thing, just because when I was doing Board Game Geek and I was putting in some stuff, I came across, I had no idea this was either happening, but Codenames has a pictures version.
Coming, yeah.
That's coming. And just that picture of the grid, of the photo of the grid of the different pictures on it, there's like a chimp in a spacesuit holding a space helmet. And there's another one that's just a bunch of tentacles. So if that only existed, I know it'd be on my list.
It's coming. It's coming.
Hi, Greg Schlosser here, talking about artwork on card games. Having to choose what game has the best artwork is so tough, and I'm sure I am forgetting dozens and dozens that had amazing artwork. But I'm going to pick A Fool's Fortune, a Rio Grande game that featured artwork from 4 major artists: Martin Hoffman, Klaus Stefan, Joshua Stewart, and Mirko Suzuki. Artwork was just fantastic, really evoking the fantasy feel of the game. So there you have it. Best artwork? A Fool's Fortune.
Hey everyone, this is Tim Jeanette the Metal Meeple, and I'm probably not alone, but I'm going to say Ashes Rise of the Phoenixborn. Fernanda did an amazing job with the art. It's just brilliant. It's very vibrant, yet even the dark cards are still very vibrant. It's just very, very well done. And I know it's not a card, but the box art is comprised of several of the cards in a big phoenix, and it is probably the best box I've ever seen in a game.
Hi, Sean from the Game Pit here, and my choice for best card artwork usually would go to something by Ryan Laukat, as I always turn to him when any question about artwork comes up. But I'm actually going to go for A Game of Thrones, the card game. And I'm talking mainly about the first edition, but I'm sure the second edition is equally as stunning. But the art in this really captures the essence of what A Game of Thrones is, and I've been a long time fan of the book series and now the TV show, and I think the artwork from a whole slew of artists, of approaching 50 artists worked on this, and they've taken it from all over, from books, from calendars, all sorts. I've seen this artwork before, but it's absolutely fantastic. It really suits the game, and it brings you into the game. So that's my choice for best card artwork.
This is Anthony from Board Gamers Anonymous, and some of the most beautiful card artwork I can think of in a board game is Tokaido. The wonderful cards here, including those beautiful vistas that you can collect throughout the game, combined with the food cards, the character cards, simple little things where the artwork becomes the game. Tokaido is a great way to end the night. It's a great way to relax and have fun talking with your friends after long, heavy games. And it's my pick for best card artwork, Tokaido.
Yo, Derek here from the What Did You Play This Week podcast, and best artwork in a card game has to go to Ashes Rise of the Phoenixborn by Fernanda Suarez, the artist. Amazing work, sets such a great mood for the game, vibrant colors, great action. That has to be number one on the list. Ashes, Rise of the Phoenixborn.
Marty and Tony from RDTN. This is an easy one for me. It's going to have to be Ashes, Rise of the Phoenixborn. The art style on those cards is incredible. It's all done by the same artist, Fernanda Suarez, and she does a fantastic job. Tony?
Oh, I would agree with you, but I'm going to also give props out to the Lord of the Rings living card game. I really like the art and how they're portraying those characters from Middle Earth. I really enjoy the artwork in those cards as well.
This is Roy from Epic Gaming Night, and for me, my number one is Time Stories. I love all the amazing art in this game. There's different artists for every single box, and it's all great. I love how the cards play out in a panorama, and sometimes you flip a card over, and the art that's on the front slightly changes for the back, and it fits the theme and story and really immerses you in the game. So for me, Time Stories.
Jonathan from the Snakes Cast. Magic the Gathering has been around for more than 2 decades, and in that time, they've had hundreds of the industry's best artists creating thousands upon thousands of beautiful images. And not every card is a masterpiece, but with such a vast pool of talent and so much work created over such a long time, no other game can come close to matching Magic's extraordinary collection of art.
This is Professor Scott Rogers of Biography of a Board Game. And which board game do I feel have the best card art? Well, my vote goes to the horror game Camp Grizzly, which manages to capture the feel of a 1980s grindhouse horror movie, all within the confines of a little card. My only complaint, if any, is that I wish the cards were larger so I could enjoy the art more.
Hey folks, Luke from the Broken Meeple here, sorry for the long absence. For card artwork, it's getting to the point now in games where it's almost a crime for artwork to be bad. There's just no excuse anymore. And I'm going to give the nod to Abyss, one of the best games of the year when it came out, and has some of the best, most gorgeous artwork for Aqua-based design that I've ever seen. So much so that I wish it actually came out as a 3D animated series. Abyss looks that good.
All right, let's see what the people said. Number 10, Ashes.
Only 10.
No surprise there. Number 9, Netrunner. I'm assuming they're talking about Android Netrunner because the original Netrunner would not even come close to making this list.
Yeah, probably not.
But it is Android Netrunner is good. Jamaica. Jamaica has some amazing card artwork. I certainly considered it. Number 7, Time Stories. Number 6, Magic the Gathering. And again, I consider Magic, and there's a lot of great artwork in Magic. I just feel like it's offset by a lot of the not great artwork, although that's mostly the early sets. Number 5 is Seven Wonders. This one kind of surprised me. Although I think that the People's Choice is trying to shoehorn Seven Wonders into every list they can.
Maybe. I guess there is strong art there. I didn't think of it. Like, if I think of those scientific cards and stuff, it's like, I guess each of those illustrations is unique.
They're good. It's just that I just don't think of it as a top 10. That's all. Number 4, Seasons. Another one I considered for sure. 3, Abyss. 2, Mysterium. And number 1, Dixit.
Yep.
I would have been surprised that Dixit not made it. It just gets so much love.
Yeah.
Well, I think this was a lengthy episode. We should probably shut it down.
Jorge. I don't want to let Jorge go, though. It's been fun.
Well, yes, you say that, and you mean it until you edit. Anyhow, Jorge, we really do appreciate you coming on the show, and from Hawaii even. We haven't ever done a show with someone in Hawaii before.
Yeah, the sun's still up here.
Wow. You have the whole day ahead of you.
Well, either way, we appreciate it, and thanks for listening to our show.
I had a lot of fun. Yeah, I remember at one point, I'm pretty sure this was a reference in a way to me, at one point in the closing credits where Eric had said, "Our caretaker is Hurley."
Yeah.
And I remember when I heard that, and I was like, "Oh, that was kind of touching." I kind of had a nice moment, just kind of be like, "Oh." In a way, they know I exist.
And the fact you know we exist is the feeling is mutual, sir.
I had a lot of fun. Yeah, I'd love to do it again some other time.
Awesome.
Well, until next time, folks, I'm Tom Vassell.
I'm Eric Summerer.
I'm Jorge Garcia.
And you've been listening to The Dice Tower.
The Dice Tower, episode 460.
You're obnoxious.
What? Welcome to The Dice Tower, a podcast about board games and card games, and especially the people who play them. On today's show, we learn how the Hive was built, how to find your sweet spot in a tense set of games, and how to get new gamers to race to the table. Also, a tale of board gaming horror, some questions from the mailbag, and our advice on how to handle an obnoxious gamer at your local game store. I'm Eric Summerer, and here's your host, the What Does the Fox Say of Board Gaming, Tom Vassell.
Meepo, 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 meepo. I don't think that works. Once again.
I mean, would you rather be like Scatman or Cotton Eye Joe?
Cotton Eye Joe.
I've been married long time ago. Where did you come from? Where did you go? I have that on CD somewhere.
It's on my Spotify list. I like it. Anyhow, so I'm trying to think of a good way to jump into this, but let's just jump right into it. My name's Tom Vassell.
Hi there, I'm Eric Summerer. We're still basking in the fun of last week with Jorge.
Yeah, but I mean, there's a lot going on. I mean, this week I'm actually in England, but I'm not.
What?
But I am. I'm in England right now.
Having fun at the UK Games Expo.
Well, technically, today, as the launch of this episode, I'm in London. And so me and Sam Healy are going to the UK Games Expo, and we are puttering around in London for a bit. And then we are going to head down to the UK Games Expo, which is in Birmingham. Again, if I mispronounce these names, I apologize. But that's going to be going on. I'll be there Thursday, but the show starts Friday. But I'll be there Thursday in case, people are around. I'll play games and stuff. On Friday, we're going to be doing a show, I think. No, the show's on Saturday. We're doing a show on Saturday, a live show. So hopefully you come and see that show. I believe it's at 12 noon. And they just told me they want me to do another show on Saturday. So we're going to try to do 2 shows Saturday. The second one might be something like interviews. I'm not quite sure what it is yet. And then we're going to do a Q&A on Sunday. So several times to see us do different things. And I'm also playing in a live game Saturday night of Pandemic.
Ooh.
With Colin Baker.
Really?
Yes.
That sounds awesome.
I love making Eric jealous. It's like one of my favorite hobbies on this show.
Oh, man.
Colin Baker was one of the Doctor Who's.
Yes, he was. And an exceedingly good sport based on what I've heard of other interactions with folks I know.
Well, we'll find out. But not just that. I'll be there hanging out. So come by and say hi. If you see me, please. I always say this, but I always mean it. Stop me and say hi. There's like a whole thread on our guild right now about how people are afraid to do that at conventions. It's okay. Except Eric. He's a jerk. But the rest of us
all the
are
time.
Nice. Now, it may be possible when you stop us that we are hurried because we have to go somewhere or tired. But that is not you. And just because we're tired doesn't mean we don't want to say hi. It just means we're going to say hi tiredly.
Hi.
Well, no. No, it
Great
just
to
happens.
meet
But
you,
at the
really.
same time, if I'm tired at a convention and I don't want to talk to people, you know what I do? I'll go to bed. If I'm in public, that means I will talk to people.
Yeah.
It's easy. If I don't want to talk to people, I just go hide somewhere. I wouldn't wear those hats if I wanted people to avoid me.
That is true. It's like a beacon.
Whoop, whoop, whoop. So, anyhow, that's coming up. And I also have some promos. If you want those promos, you can hunt me down, and I might have a few promos in my backpack. And, let's see. Gen Con, sign up for our live show. I'm also doing a do's and don'ts of media.
Ooh.
So if you want to know how to do a podcast or videoing, or at least hear from us, me, Jamie Kiki from Secret Cabal, and Rodney Smith from Watch It Played are doing it.
I should sign up for that. I could probably pick up some tips.
Yeah, maybe. Well, what we did was we deliberately kept it at 3 people only because we found that in large panels like such, what will often happen is everyone repeats each other and each person talks for a total of 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Which is why if I run a designer panel in the future, I'll probably just have 2 or 3 designers because I think that makes for a more interesting outlook.
Mm-hmm.
So you can sign up for both of those. Our Origins show is only a bit away. We're very excited about that. We're going to be streaming live from Origins.
Exciting.
Well, hopefully streaming live. And I'm going to do a couple things, I think, from Origins streaming live. We're going to do very similar to what we did at Gamma. We're going to have, we already have a whole schedule. We have companies signed up to show us all kinds of new games. It's very exciting. They're going to show off all these games. And so you'll be able to watch that live if you're not there. So you can watch that live. And we might just turn the camera on at night live and just let it roll and see what happens.
Oh, neat.
Or we might not. We'll see.
It depends on how tired we are.
Right. And yeah, again, that's kind of, maybe I'll even show a game or something that's being played there. Who knows? But I'm excited about Origins. I always am. I'm excited about the UK Gaming Expo. I'm excited about Gen Con. We are in convention season, and I'm happy.
Woohoo!
But I do want to say, I know that some people, I know the feeling of not going. You know, I can't go to Gen Con. I can't go to Origins. I can't go to whatever.
To the UK Gaming Expo.
I like to go to these, but I can't go. And I understand that, and we don't do these shows to rub it in. What we are trying to do is tell you about all the cool stuff that we saw there, and then you can learn more about these games and stuff and kind of give you a taste of what it's like to be there. And with the live videos, you can feel like you're there to some degree also. So we're not trying to like, oh, we're only talking about conventions, but the conventions are important because Origins is when a lot of games are announced. And UK too, also in England. And, you know, Gen Con, 7 billion games are released or something like that.
Something like that, more or less.
We'll be doing our crossover episode again this year before Gen Con with the Secret Cabal.
Cool.
And I would like to say that's far off in the future, but it's really not.
It's not, no.
And Dice Tower Con's around the corner. And
Oh, my
Eric's
goodness.
bringing his family.
Woohoo!
Like almost the whole Dice Tower crew is going to be at Dice Tower Con. That's very exciting. And
I'm excited.
Live shows there and stuff. And we'll be streaming live from Dice Tower Con too. See, you don't have to pay any money. You can go to all the conventions.
Just sit by your computer and you can see it through your
You
screen.
will watch what we will tell you to watch. You can't turn your head. So anyhow, let's jump into some games. And Eric, your first game, I believe, goes up to 8 players?
The first game goes up to 1 player.
Oh, only 1? But it looks
Only
so cool on the
one.
box.
On the box, it's 8 and up, but only 1 player.
Yeah, this is a solo game. I think Z is playing our copy that came into us. Coffee Roaster. Tell us about it.
Coffee Roaster. It's from a Japanese design firm called Sashi & Sashi. In Coffee Roaster, you are trying to roast a particular coffee bean. You can either play this as like a one-off. They say that takes about 10 minutes or so. Or you can play like a series of 3. You pick a coffee bean and you say, I'm going to roast this bean and I'm going to do the best job I possibly can. And that bean card that you pull tells you to put certain tokens into a bag. Many of them are going to be 0 value coffee beans, but there may be some hard beans or bad beans, and also some flavor profile tokens go into this bag as well. And each round you're going to pull a certain number of these and then do stuff with them. You can spend some of these flavor tokens to activate various powers, like splitting some of these coffee beans into, if you have a number 2 roast bean, you can split it into 2 1s. Or a number 4 can be a 3 and a 1. Or you can combine some of them. 2 1s can become a 2. You can also draw more out of the bag. You can get rid of some of the tokens, although it's somewhat difficult to do that. If you manage to trigger some of these abilities, that can earn you bonuses for the final round. And all of this is heading toward a final round, a tasting, the cup test, they call it. So you're drawing things from the bag, and you're manipulating the tokens, and you're earning special powers. And then you sort of shuffle everything back into the bag and do another round, or say, I think I'm ready. I think I've roasted these beans, because as you work your way through these beans, you will sort of upgrade them. You will replace the 0s with 1s each round, replace the 1s with 2s, etc. But if you get too far, if you roast a number 4 bean, you're going to burn it, and that's not good because that's negative points for you. Eventually you say, all right, I think I'm ready. I'm doing the cup test, and you start pulling tokens from your bag, and you only get to pull 10 tokens, and then you evaluate your cup. You can also ditch some of them. So if you pull like really terrible beans, and you may have opened up a certain number of slots to ditch tokens, but eventually you've got your group of 10 and you total up how close you are to that bean's flavor profile, where you want the roast to be, what flavors you want in it, if you manage to get some style points, and you evaluate how well you did. And if you're moving on to a second or third round, you then, based on how well you did, can either do a easy, medium, or hard next bean, and then into the third round, and then you total up your score, and you're trying to get like a maximum of 75 points or something to become the Meister. You get a score at the end, and you're trying to get a high score. Components are pretty solid for this game.
They look really nice.
The cardstock, the cardboard is very thick. It's not quite linen finish. It's almost like a crosshatch finish on these components. Nice thick chipboard. There's an organizer on the inside for all these tokens because you're going to be trading these things out like crazy. And the fact that it's got this nice storage tray built into the box is pretty neat. For a first or second game for this company, this is pretty solid. Gameplay-wise, it's a little fiddly. Just because that's the nature of the game. You're drawing tokens and manipulating them, and it's actually kind of difficult to get a grasp on what you need to do to make this game work. I think it has a lot to explore. There's tons of options. When do you spend these flavor tokens to trigger abilities? And do you do it early in the sequence? Do you do it late? As you move your way through the game, you start adding smoke tokens to the pile. Sometimes you like double roast your beans at certain points in your roasting sequence, and needing to time that. There's just so many levers to push in this game that it's a little tricky to get a handle on it. And I still think I don't quite have a total handle on it. I don't know if this is really my style of game. There's just so much to crunch in this game that I don't know if I'm necessarily the audience for this. I spent a lot of time just staring and trying to figure out what I want to do. Ultimately, you're just trying to increase the probability that you will pull good tokens at the end of the game. And have more options to spend when it get down to that cup test. I'm sort of a middling review on this. It's got a lot to think about. It's got a lot of levers to push. There's tons of different beans to explore. So if you get really good at one particular bean, one of these easy beans, there's like 22 different bean challenges to take. And each one has different flavor goals and different roasting goals. There's meat to this game about coffee. I just think it might be a little too precise for my taste. That's Coffee Roaster. What was that?
There's meat to this game about coffee.
Yes, that's Coffee Roaster from Sashi and Sashi.
All right, well, let's talk about Bear Valley.
Rawr.
This is a stronghold game in which you are trying to get your camper from camp to the other camp, or whatever. You're trying to get from one card to another.
Sure.
And you're doing this by placing cards in this grid pattern, but what you do on your turn is you say, I'm going to move here. And you don't actually move there, you just put your finger there. And then you flip a card, and hopefully you can make a path from where you are to that card. You probably can, but you might not be, in which case, too bad. You don't move that turn. If you can move there, then you can decide to move there, or you can try to move farther. So you put your finger in another spot next to that card and say, I'm going to move here. However, after a certain amount of time, when let's say you say 3 o'clock, you say 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock as you put your finger out. Let's say you say 3 o'clock and the card turns over and has 3 exits from that card, then you don't move. So there's always a chance you don't move. And if you ever turn over a card with a bear, you don't move at all. Unless it's the very first card, then you can hide from the bear. And if you decide to go over 7 cards and you turn over a bear card, then you die and are ejected from the game for pushing your luck to such extremes.
So this is what happened to you?
No, it did not, because even I have my limits.
Really? Okay.
I would try it if I was losing, though. Okay, so that's the basic game. The advanced game adds in different equipment that you can find, and each character has like a negative thing, like I'm scared of caves, so they can't use caves. Caves let you go from one spot to another. But they also have a positive thing. And it adds some stuff to the game. I think the base game's fine. It's a light push your luck game. It's from Carl Chuddick, which is really odd because it doesn't feel like his game at all. And I like it. Okay. It's fun. It's not going to set the world on fire. The artwork, I think, is pretty bad. I really, really dislike the artwork. It looks like rejects from a 1990 video game that was trying to be in 3D. The board is okay, although they have these big icons of gun and things like that. So I like it, but it's probably going to be forgotten in a couple years. That's Bear Valley.
From the Classic Games file, one of the guys in my game group was looking for something that hadn't hit the table in a while and pulled out Fabrique de Traum. Traum Fabrique, or Dream Factory, is the English edition of this game. This is a Reiner Knizia classic about making movies, and you've got a bunch of movies that you're trying to create, and in order to do so, you need to fill these slots in these movies with actors, directors, special effects, music. It's all different based on what the movie is. And you acquire these elements through a series of auctions. It's a pretty pure auction game with a closed economy. As each player has a certain number of contracts that they will be bidding with, and when you win a bid, you put these contracts in the center, and then they get split up as evenly as possible, or actually literally evenly, and then the remainder is left over to the other players in the game. So you may spend a ton on something you really want, a grouping of tiles, but then your other players are getting richer while you are sort of having to replenish your stock for a few turns. So picking your battles is vastly important. And I enjoyed it, but I didn't pick my battles quite the way I needed to. I forgot how important it is to get actors on your movie. Because not only do they need to fill the slots of this particular film, but if you have actors, you get first choice at parties that happen periodically on the board. And parties are like free grabs for tiles. So it's a 5-player game. There are 5 tiles face down. You flip them all up. Whoever has the most actors gets first choice. I was behind the curve on actors for the entire game and just always got to pick last, which meant I never got the tile I wanted at the party. And as a result, I lost a lot of very critical timing auctions and just never quite caught up again. You're trying to build these things. There's a sort of a star rating for the different tiles. You add them up and you make a kind of a high watermark for that particular type of film. You may be able to win an award if you're the highest rated film at the end of a year or at the end of a quarter, I guess. And eventually the year ends and they give out awards for the best director and the worst film if you have the least number of stars in the whole thing. And you total all these up and hopefully you got more points than the other players. It's certainly an interesting game, and I got to play the German version, the German Hasbro version that uses real movies and real stars, a version or at least an approach that none of the American versions, the English language versions, have been able to take due to publicity rights for these various stars. But there are tons of paste-ups that you can seek out on Board Game Geek, which will allow you to make real movie and real actor versions of these games. It's fun. Again, this is another one that I think I'm not as psyched about having played it again after all these years, but it is a really solid system and one with a need for some finesse in playing it. And I certainly did not have that in this most recent play. But worth exploring if you haven't played Dream Factory or Traum Fabric. It's a fun one to try.
What version did you play again?
This was the German Hasbro one, Fabrique de Traum, with the real movies.
No paste-ups or anything.
No paste-ups. This was the real movies, or the stars and the movies on it.
Yeah, and that's fine. I think the game is still good that way, but adding the paste-ups makes it more fun because you're talking about movies you know.
That's true. I mean, this was like All Quiet on the Western Front and Bambi and Frankenstein.
Though there's some, yeah, and you're only saying those movies because they're the ones you remember.
True.
Okay, so let's talk about Bad Medicine.
Let's.
Have you played Bad Medicine?
I played a prototype of Bad Medicine with the designer shortly before it came out, but I haven't seen the production version.
Yeah, the designer is Gil Hova, and this is from Formal Ferret Games. It's the company he started. Bad Medicine is another in the genre of selling games.
Yes.
Hey, I'm selling you something, you need to buy it. There's a lot of these games out there. And in Bad Medicine, you are making up medicines to cure a disease. You'll flip over a card, find out what the disease is. It might be something like warts are growing out of your arm. It might be kidney failure, or it might be you're turning into a zombie. They're really all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
You'll draw a handful of cards, and the cards have these diseases on them, but they also have parts of words at the top. So you put these parts of words together to make the name of your cure.
Mm-hmm.
You put 3 cards together. So my cure is Fergashu, whatever. And then you pick 2 other cards, and they tell you how the medicine works. Well, this medicine works through hair and through burning sensation, or whatever the cards say. And then every other player gives you a side effect, and you pick one of those side effects that hopefully is not too bad, and explain why that side effect isn't as bad as it sounds.
Right. It's actually it's a benefit.
Right. Now, the game plays very differently with 3 or 4. I just explained that way. If you play with 5 or higher, you're on teams, which is a little bit better because your teammate picks your cards for you, but doesn't tell you what they are.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're flipping them over, and you're saying, this is the medicine, and it does this. And you got to, you're learning it as you flip the cards over.
Right.
And so that's better. The game has a couple problems with it, though, which I'm not a real big fan of it. And I'll tell you why. One, it's in that selling genre, but it's very narrow in scope. It's selling medicine.
Mm-hmm.
And let's say snake oil, medicine could be one of the many things. But you're also selling electronics and food, and there's like a ton of different things. This is very focused, and maybe it's just me, but I find a lot of the stuff in this game is kind of gross and disgusting to talk about sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's very gross and disgusting to the point where a lot of it I felt was like Beavis and Butthead silliness almost. Like, ooh, I'm gonna say these words. I'm gonna talk about having this on this part of my body type. I don't know. It was forced humor is what I call it. Like, you get the cards and you got to use the cards you get. So it's okay, I guess. I just didn't find it very funny. I found it almost like one of the parts of a name is fart. Yay? Hi, I put fart in my name. Everyone laughs. That's better than Eric has show in his name.
Right.
And there's other combinations of letters that they put in there deliberately so you would say, quote unquote, naughty words.
Yeah.
Deliberately in the game, right?
Yeah.
That's okay, but again, it's kind of like, hey, you can do this stuff. I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. So the game looks good. It's a funny idea. I find it too limiting, and I find the humor too juvenile. You liked it.
I did. I think certainly more than you. It was late at night when I played it, so I may have already been in the right mindset. But I liked the creativity of trying to work in these crazy, zany, side effects into whatever it was we were trying to cure, and trying to align the effects and the side effects and the benefits as best you can to fit whatever the situation is. And just putting together the syllables into a name that rolls off the tongue, and trying to present it like a drug commercial. I enjoyed it.
I guess, but all that you said there is done better in But Wait, There's More.
I haven't. I'd have to do a side-by-side comparison. I did enjoy it.
That's Bad Medicine.
I got to play My First Carcassonne.
What? I played this 10 years ago, Eric.
I know. Well, this is the first time I introduced it to my 4-year-old.
Oh, actually, I was making a joke there because you said I played My First Carcassonne.
I
realized it actually did come out quite a while ago.
It did, and it was called The Kids of Carcassonne, which is the edition I've got, but you can now get it as My First Carcassonne. What the difference is between this and the full-size Carc is larger tiles, thicker tiles, and all of the connections on these tiles connect to each other. There are all roads. The roads always connect in all 4 sides of each tile. So there is no real matching aspect. It's just which roads do you connect to which other roads. The object is to get rid of all 8 of your little followers in your color, and you do that every time you complete a road. Anytime there is an end point on a road, you look at the followers, which are pre-printed on the tiles. So you may finish a road and there's 2 blue followers and a yellow follower. The blue player gets to get rid of 2 of their guys and put them on the board, and the yellow gets to put 1 of their guys on the board. First to get rid of all of their little meeples, actually they're not little, large meeples, wins the game. It's not one that I'm particularly interested in. It's really, the key is all about trying to get the other players to help you out as well, joining in with their larger roads that they're going to finish anyway, but then also helping get rid of one of your guys. The kids, however, both of them, the 4-year-old and the 8-year-old, both really enjoyed this game and wanted to play it again after we were done. So it seems to be that sweet spot that they can play it together and be engaged. It's over relatively quickly. It's one that they're not going to get bored with and again want to play again. So huge hit for them. I'm still not... I'll play it, absolutely. It's adorable. It's a very cute version of the game and a lovely intro into the tile-laying genre. But the kids loved it. My First Carcassonne, thumbs up for them.
Thumbs up, I agree. Excellent. Next game, let's switch up to some happiness here, and that's Dwarves Incorporated.
Happy Dwarves.
Dwarves Incorporated is a game I didn't think much. It showed a dwarf on the front. I opened it up. There's a bunch of gems of different colors inside. I'm like, okay. And so you put this random board together, and you put 1 gem of each color on the board. And then players are going to, on their first turn, take 4 gems of different colors. And on future, these are gems that they're investing in. And on future turns, you can get more of them. But your turn consists of you taking 3 gems of the same color and extending one of the lines of gems on the board. So these gems are growing all over the board. And when gems cross different things, you can get more investment gems, or you can score that color, and whoever has the most investment gems of that color is going to get points equal to the number of dwarves they have. And you can also get more dwarves by crossing different things on the board. So the board is really just kind of abstract. You're just moving this stuff around to land on different icons, to score it, to invest more, to get more dwarves, or to get a special card, which will do different things for you. And so it's kind of like a stock market game. You are essentially investing in these different gems as they go along, but it also gives me a feeling of Through the Desert.
By
Reiner Knizia. It has that same feel. In that one, you put 2 camels out. In this one, you're putting out 3 gems. And I just really enjoyed it. Yeah, the artwork could use an overhaul. Yeah, it doesn't look that much to look at it, but I enjoyed it. It was a fast 45-minute game as we all worked. It had a stock market feel. You're like, oh, he has a lot of blue. Maybe I should get into blue too, but maybe I should just grow the yellow one instead. It was more than the sum of its parts, and that's a good thing. That's Dwarves Incorporated.
Interesting.
I should also mention here Magecraft. Magecraft is another bag building game or pool building game. It's a 2-player fighting mage versus mage game. Yes, I know there's a lot of those out there. But in this one, you have spells in front of you, and each turn you're going to draw some mana from your bag. And you'll use this mana to cast spells and buy new spells and maybe get more mana that's thrown into your bag. So you're trying to get the right mana into your bag. And you win this game by knocking your opponent's making all their hit points go away, or by getting 20 victory points. And when you buy new spells, they're put on top of spells you already have, making a chain, so you can activate a whole chain of spells if you have the right combination of jewels that you've drawn. And the spells are basically hit your opponent for a hit point, draw some more gems from the bag, put some shields up to block your opponents, add some more gems to your bag, from the middle. It's very simple, very quick, and I already like the whole bag building mechanism. And add it to a 2-player fighting game worked pretty well. So that's Magecraft.
Cool.
All right. Let's get to the sweet spot.
You just hit the sweet spot.
Hello, everyone. My name is Glenn Flaherty, and welcome to the Sweet Spot, where we talk about games that fit price points or time frames. Today we're going to do games with tension, and for me that's usually horror games, so let's just start right away. If you need a game that's short and free, look till Until Dawn. It's about 20 minutes. It's a free print and play, although you can get the nice version of it from Drive-Thru Cars for like $10. It's basically a tower defense. You're defending your cabin against an onslaught of people, and one of the women in your cabin might turn against you, and you have a dog helping you. It's pretty cool, except for the fact that there's this one card that kills your dog right away, and if that happens, you get stuck. So throw that card out, and then you have a cool, free little solo game. Number 2, Hostage Negotiator. That's about 20 minutes. Should be about $20, although on Amazon I saw it for $40. That is insane. It is tense. You basically are trying to get your people who are being held hostage, but they're getting eliminated, and you're trying to get rid of the bad guy. A lot depends on your dice roll. And a lot of games are like that, but in this one you're spending a lot of resources to get powerful cards, but the powerful cards don't activate without the die roll. And so it's a real bummer if that doesn't work out, and then your big expensive card goes back in the hopper and you got to try to get it again. Okay, that's Hostage Negotiator. Number 3, Don't Turn Your Back. It's a card game. It is very immersive, very dark and gothic, and which actually to me is some of the most interesting, because when I used to play at the Vault in Baltimore, this club, they had goth nights while I'd be playing music, and the people there looked a lot like the people in this game, so a little too close to home. But it's very immersive. It has a Carcassonne-like score track, and you're trying to get candles, which are your victory points, and you're trying to outdo people. That's about 45 minutes. The game's about $30, so that's pretty cool. Up under the radar for number 4, it takes 1 hour. I think it's about $35. It's called The Possession. It basically cuts to the chase, a betrayal at House on the Hill. You go right to the end phase where one person is attacking the others. So someone is possessed. They're trying to possess everyone else. You're trying to search for pages of the Necronomicon to end the game. And people are with you, then they're against you because you keep flipping back between possession. So that's pretty cool, an interesting one to put in your deck. All right, number 5. I actually think this is a cool game. Cards of Cthulhu. It looks really, really awesome. It's a solo game, and it's another game where you're fighting through the deck. It reminds me a lot of Ghost Stories with the variable ability of your enemies. And what's also really cool about it is it comes with metal coins. The board is a little wonky, because it's like in 4 pieces or something. But if you can get past that's a pretty cool game. And number 6 here is Dawn of the Zeds. I don't know if you've played it or seen it, but that's another game that I always think people don't think about. It kind of will remind you of Dead of the Winter with more going on. It's a solo game, the one I played. However, the 3rd edition's coming out, and it has a co-op. It is a gorgeous, gorgeous game. The setup time takes a lot, and the rule book is really dense. It's going to take an hour and a half to 2 hours to play, but it's very, very rich. So those are a bunch of good games. Check those out if you're looking for something you haven't played before. Again, that's Until Dawn, Hostage Negotiator, Don't Turn Your Back, The Possession, Cards of Cthulhu, and Dawn of the Zeds. 3rd edition if you can get your hands on it. Anyway, that's it, guys. Thank you so much. Have fun.
Mr. Vassal,
Tom.
Any truth to the rumor that Nothing Personal is just a reskin of Click Clack Lumberjack?
Why are you so mean to your co-host?
All right, best food, Origins or Gen Con?
And now the Dice Tower will authoritatively, definitely, possibly, maybe, answer your questions.
Tom, which way to the bathroom?
Look at this, Eric. Did you think we were catching up on questions?
I did, and now it doesn't look like we've done anything.
And that's not even all of them.
Oh. Great. Thank you.
Don't let this stop you from sending in questions, though, folks. I actually have noticed a huge reduction in questions being asked. So at that rate, we probably will get caught up. But sometimes I get asked really interesting questions and they get moved to the top.
Sure.
So let's get started.
Hopefully this is one of the interesting ones. Tom, not you, Tom, but this Tom, asks, with more and more terminal games coming out, games like Time Stories or the Legacy games, notably Seafall, which has no standard analog, I was curious to know how you go about learning and teaching these games. My group recently played through Time Stories and didn't realize we had some rules wrong until we were able to watch playthrough videos later. With the inability to watch videos or read forums regarding these games due to spoilers, what do you do to ensure you're playing the game as accurately as possible?
That's a really interesting question.
That's tough. Well, I mean, one, reading the rule book more than once, going through, maybe even giving it a little bit of time and going back again to see how they've described things and even lay out the pieces without opening any of the secret packets and stuff. One thing that helps is we, in the first run-through of Time Stories, realized that we had gotten some minor rules wrong, and looking afterwards that the next time you either teach it to someone or run through the next scenario, you have a better handle of what you've done right and wrong. There are spoiler-free rules threads on many of these on BoardGameGeek that try their best to ask the questions without getting into plot-related details.
Yeah, but I found some of those sometimes even let things slip a little. Here's the deal. Just set up these games, read the rules, and have fun. If you notice you made a few rules mistakes and you had a great time, what does it matter? I mean, obviously you want to play the game as well as you possibly can and as close to the way the designer intended. But, we run into things, especially in Time Stories, even with each new scenario, there's some new mechanism. And sometimes we'll run into something like, I don't know how that works. Well, you know what? We're just going to do what makes sense most thematically. And if later on we find out that we made a minor thing, we can live with that because we still had fun over the course of the game.
Right. You're in the thick of it. You have to sort of make a call and go.
Especially like in Time Stories and Pandemic Legacy, both of them are cooperative games. So it's not like someone's going to get mad over the decision.
It's true.
Now, when Seafall comes out, I don't know, all bets are off there, I guess.
I mean, yeah, we had, it was a combat rule in Time Stories that we were being unnecessarily harsh with the combat, and we were doing a lot more damage to our characters than we should have been. So in that case, we were hurting ourselves more than we should have been, and it was bad for the whole group.
Nate says, what do you do with all the packaging peanuts that you get in the mail with your shipped games? There's so many, and they keep coming and coming. So he wants to know, how can you repurpose them? Now, I want to start out here by saying peanuts are amazing. I know everyone hates peanuts, and my wife sighs when I open a box of games and it's filled to the very brim with peanuts, and I'm like, all right, I can get this game out without one peanut falling on the floor. And I don't believe I've ever done that. And then I say, Jimmy, and she's like, what are you doing? Okay, but yes, peanuts are bad because they get all over the place, right? But peanuts are by far the most economical, best way to keep your games from getting damaged. I talked to Cool Stuff about this, and they said peanuts are way better. They have way less damage that happens to them. Those big foam, the bubbles, the big foam bubble things those big giant plastic bubbles, newspaper, brown paper, all that stuff, games get damaged. And it doesn't get damaged with peanuts because they fill those cracks. It works really well. Now, some places have those peanuts that dissolve in water. Those are amazing.
Yep.
Can't have those from Florida, Cool Stuff, etc. They said because the humidity.
They would melt, yeah.
Also cockroaches because they have sugar in them. I'd go with no cockroach peanuts, please, for 100.
Yes. Yeah, you don't want cockroaches with your games.
So what do I do with peanuts? Well, I either throw them away or I'll save them for when I ship out my own package. That's what I do. I can't think of anything else. I can't think of any art project that peanuts could be used for, and I certainly make sure they're hidden away because kids turn peanuts. They can turn 2 peanuts into 2,000
peanuts. Yes,
because those things are made to be snapped in half, and then in half again,
right,
and then again, and you're like, stop it! How did you do that? And we're not just talking like babies. Everyone does it. They'll pick up a peanut and they're like, wait, you just snapped that in half. What are you doing? You're snapping it in half again. There's something about it. It's like a drug.
Sure. It's like popping bubble wrap.
Yeah, but that's okay. I'm all for that. When the package comes in, the kids all running. Is there bubble wrap? Can I have it? Like, no, I need to save this for another package.
Nothing to add from me. I tend to do the same thing. I sort of say, well, I'm going to save this. I get a garbage bag and I fill it up so when I need peanuts, I have them. They're ready to go. And then, you get to the second or third garbage bag. It's like, I don't need to save anymore. I need to start getting rid of this. But then they're already in garbage bags. Josh asks about Quadropolis. He just watched the Dice Tower Express video on Quadropolis and had a question. I've watched 2 separate reviews on this game and just now noticed the cheap quality on the player boards. This bothers me a lot. The worst culprit I can think of being Ora et Labora. Does this bother you? You've done the hobby good ranting about black-bordered cards, cheap chipboard, and game boxes with windows. What about this tendency to replace a chipboard player board with one that is cardstock? At least in the case of Quadropolis, if they are putting that much cardboard in the box already, why make the player boards cheap? It wouldn't have increased the cost that much to simply make them chipboard like the rest of the game, although I realize without knowing the details, we can't say exactly what the cost would have been. Is it a heavy game? Is weight the main factor? My copy of Oro looks like it's had 50 plays already, although I've only played it about 8 times. Fantasy Flight does this all the time, too, with their player boards. Drives me more mad than having to use their silly lieutenant tokens instead of minis. And if they have to print the player boards on cardstock, why not cut the corners like a normal card and put a linen finish on them? Those 90-degree corners just get beat up so easily. It's one thing to have a player aid on some paper that's passed around, but a player board is a required game component to play the game. This seems inconsistent when you've got other required components made from heavy, linen-coated cards, thick chipboard, and plastic or wood tokens and figures that will all greatly outlast the player boards. What do we do when time takes its toll on our copy of the game? Print out new player boards ourselves? How do you feel about this? Is it a problem? And if not, how does it compare with other poor production decisions, such as the ones you've been known to talk about? What justifies printing necessary game boards on cardstock? How much does the community's complacency factor figure into a decision to use cardstock? Let's face it, there's a lot of us who are going to buy Imperial Assault regardless of the player board quality.
Eric, you sound like you get more frustrated as you read that.
Yeah.
I know this is going to sound bad. I don't care about this that much. Because those cardstock, they're set on the table. They just sit there the whole game. I'm not picking them up. I'm not moving around. They're just sitting there. Now, I don't like paper because, let's say, what's a good one that uses paper? The Vegas Showdown.
Yes.
Hate those.
Yeah, those boards are not great.
But that cardstock just sits there on the board. It's like very few games don't use that cardstock. Most games don't use chipboard because it really is that much more expensive. For example, when you get the chipboard done for a board game, you have to print out a certain number of boards, and that's why you see these games and they try to fit all the pieces onto a board as much as they can.
Mm-hmm.
If you put all these player boards, that's another chipboard that they have to get printed out, another counter sheet that they have to get printed out for each one usually. Like, let's say you did it for Quadropolis. That would be another 4 sheets of thing. That would exponentially increase the cost of that game. Not exponentially. It would just increase the cost of the game.
Right. And plus another sheet of cardboard might not be able to fit in the box as easily.
Right. If you may have noticed, Quadropolis was pretty full when you get it. So cost is certainly one thing. You also mentioned the cornering. Cornering is a very expensive process to do, to round corners. With cards, it's not so big of a deal because they have special machines that will corner cards, round the corners on those cards. But for other things, the cutting machines, they cut right angles. I mean, that's how a cutting machine works. I used to run one myself. And I can cut diagonal angles on the corner, make it look like we're in Battlestar Galactica.
Mm-hmm.
But between the cost and the difficulty of doing it, combined with the fact that I just don't see it as a big deal. These things you're talking about are just sitting on the table. I'm not really sure how they're getting beat up after 8 plays. What's beating them up? You're placing tiles on top of them?
Transport. The aids bang around in the box and the corners get bashed.
Is this a problem? Is this something that you're noticing? I don't notice it in my games.
It's not something that really bothers me either.
I mean, sure, I would like rounded corners. Sure, I like thicker cardboard. I wouldn't complain if I got one. I'd be like, wow. But I'm trying to think of almost any game that does it. Also, this may be the first email I've ever gotten where someone accused Days of Wonder of cutting corners.
Or not cutting corners.
As soon as I said that, I knew that. I'm thinking about all the different games that use it. Descent, the character cards. Battlestar Galactica, the character cards. I'm trying to think of a game that doesn't use it, that gives you, like... Galaxy Trucker has boards for each of the ships.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, again, it doesn't bother me. I guess I was a little annoyed with the Fantasy Flight Merchant of Venus boards. They are card stock with cardboard attached to them, chipboard attached to them. And it's a little weird, but again, I think it is space, weight, cost. These are things that need to be compromised a little bit in order to keep the cost of the game down.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd love it if everything was chipboard, but I understand that they have to make sacrifices.
All right. Well, let's get to the next question from Ben. He says, most games these days are a mix of different mechanisms, hopefully with a good theme. He says, imagine, if you will, a game of set collection with a bit of take that, but no player elimination, a medium dose of luck, some variable player powers, and one or two game-changing surprises. Does this sound like a reasonable game? It's Flux! So why the Fluxate? Okay, so the player powers are very variable, and the luck can swing wildly, and the theme is somewhat pasted on. Okay, but as an owner of Star Flux and Firefly Flux, it's still one of the most played games I have. My kids love it. And once you get the general idea, it's a fantastic little filler game. And he said there's some new rules in the Firefly game that change a few things.
Yep.
I don't mean to hate on Flux, and if you love it and like it, then that's fantastic. Who cares what I would say about the game? If you love a game, love it. I would argue that when he said a medium dose of luck, that seems like a gross exaggeration. I would say that it is a 98% luck game. There's a lot of luck in Flux.
Sure.
You can, and this is what we've talked about before, you can make any game sound good or any game sound bad if you distill it down. That's just some dice chucking game. No, there's more to it than that.
Right.
But you can also make games sound really good too. Like, oh, well, in this game, you get to spend time leveling up and fighting other players and working together as a team to stop one player from winning in Munchkin. Yeah, okay. So you can always make things sound really good or really bad. I don't necessarily hate Flux. I think I'd rather play Flux over Munchkin, actually. But it's just too random for me.
It is, I mean, the possibility that the game could go on for several goes through the deck if no one is able to achieve objectives. And some of that is the fault of the players as well. If you continually play rules that just totally mess with everybody's hands and don't give anyone an opportunity to build anything, then yeah, the game's going to go a while. There was a time I was playing Flux a ton. It was one of my entries into the hobby. And so I still am very fond of it. Not that I need to tell you that.
Official Flux reviewer of the Dice Tower.
Indeed.
Eric Summerer.
I can't wait for the next version. Robert recently kickstarted a new game that he's anticipating. Not going to say what it is, but it's a second edition game that just came out. He looked at the final.
Doesn't help us at all.
Yeah, I know.
But...
It could be any time. I looked at the final pledge total, and it's costing me $169 plus shipping. The question is, are games getting too big for what you are getting? It seems like some games have excessive content that realistically some people may not see or use.
Well, there's certainly truth to that, right? You go and you buy the game, and they're like, here's a couple add-ons. You're like, oh, yeah, those sound good. Oh, you want a fifth player? Yeah, why not? Here's a couple promo cards. Ooh, do you want to upgrade your coins?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you look at your final, and you're like, what? What did I just pledge? Yeah, but now I would say if you think you're going to be playing the game a ton, then you'll probably use all that cool stuff.
Sure, but you don't know that until you actually... So recently, the Apocrypha Adventure card game. This is the latest from Mike Selinker and his Lone Shark design team. Sort of the evolution of the adventure card game concept that's been made famous with Pathfinder. I backed this one, but I could have backed it with, like, there was some sort of Uber pack that had everything that they were releasing in the first wave of the game. A whole bunch of scenarios and extra villains and all sorts of stuff. And I was like, ooh, everything. I like everything. And then I went, but I haven't even played this game yet. How do I know I'm going to like it? Do I want all of the expansions possible from day one? Let's just do the base game. I'm interested. I'm willing. I'm buying in on the base one. But sometimes it's not worth investing all the way until you've played it first. But I guess that's the danger when you have these Kickstarter campaigns that here's a bunch of exclusive content that we're not going to make available, possibly ever, that you need to buy right now, but I don't even know if I like it yet. It's tough.
Since you mentioned Pathfinder just came out with the app. Have you gotten that?
I have not gotten the app yet.
I thought you would like that, actually.
Yeah, I probably would.
I've heard good things about it.
Yeah, it's on my to-do list, but it's, there's lots of games to play.
All right. Dennis says on International Tabletop Day, he picked up a copy of Broom Service from his store. When he took off the shrink wrap, he thought it felt funny, but didn't think about much more. He opened it. All the components are already in baggies. He thought, wow, this is convenient. Then he starts to read the rules and sees stuff about punch boards. And he's like, what? He puts it together and realizes the store sold him a returned game. All the components are there, all are accounted for, and appear to be in good shape. Does the store owe it to its customers to mark a box as previously opened? Should they sell these games at full price? So he says he's trying to support his local store, so he probably wouldn't have been swayed by this, but he does think it's an interesting question. I think the first part of his question where he says, does the store owe it to their customers to mark a box as previously opened? Yes.
Yeah.
I can't imagine anybody who would say no to that except, obviously, this particular store. In fact, I almost want to say I think it's illegal to re-shrink wrap things and sell them as if they're new.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it doesn't say it's new. It doesn't say it's used. But yeah, the assumption if you're going to buy a new game, a shrink-wrapped game at a store, is that it's new. And that there's a guarantee that everything is there and in mint condition and etc.
It's just really weird.
It is. It's very strange.
I mean, everything's there, so it's not like it's awful, but now, should they sell it at full price? That's up to the store.
Right.
Most stores will not sell an open thing at full price. They'll be like, all right, well, even if it's a small discount, I could say, well, look, this game's it's not mint, but it's, in excellent condition. So I'll give you a 10% discount. I don't know, whatever they might say. But shrink wrapping again seems awfully shady. It also means the store owns a shrink wrap machine. So there's always a possibility it's not the store's fault at all. That somehow this game came through the system. Maybe someone came and sold them the game.
Maybe. Yeah, it's hard to say.
No, I don't want to always accuse people. You don't know.
Right.
They could have got the game through a warehouse somewhere that was getting rid of games. They're like, let's get these games. And they didn't know. Somewhere along the line, someone re-shrink wrapped that game.
Right. Yeah, which is sort of disingenuous.
All right, let's do one last one.
David says, in a recent podcast, you answered a listener's question about whether he should support local game stores even if they lack the friendly. I live in Tulsa, and there are a few pretty friendly game stores here. However, recently I learned of a crowdfunding campaign someone started in an effort to open a new game store nearby. At first, my thought was that it was a great idea, as more stores mean more games, and more games means more gamers. But in the pitch video, they specifically mention primarily supporting trading card games like Magic. Great. Another Magic store. Whoopee. I don't play Magic. To be honest, I'd rather have a game cafe like Snakes and Lattes or something. In my conversation with other gamers, and this is what I'm really writing to about, someone mentioned that if the new game store opened too close in proximity to the current competitor, it would fracture the base, making tournaments at the current store smaller. What are your thoughts? Is having too many friendly local game stores too close together a problem for potentially fracturing the player base? Is having more stores better regardless, so long as they're friendly? Or do you figure it will probably all shake out in the end? I think fracturing the player base is certainly a concern. I mean, not game stores, but we had a bunch of frozen yogurt places in Hamden for a while. We had 3 of them. We didn't need 3 Froyo stores, and 2 closed. So only 1 survived. And that certainly is the danger here.
I guess it would be... You can't tell someone, don't start a store because there's already one here.
Right.
I mean, competition's healthy, right? I don't know. Let the best store win. If it fractures the player base, I don't think it will fracture the player base. The people that you like to play games with will pick one of the 2 stores.
Yeah.
I don't know that I've ever seen a place where all the gamers I want to play with hung out at 2 different stores. I mean, fractured player bases happen. In Miami, we got people playing games all over the place. But I don't think that I would worry about the store doing that. And also, if I was starting a local store, you can bet anything I'd be talking about Magic. You might be bored with it, but it's going to give that store money, and you want that store to stay in business.
Mm-hmm.
Woo! We did a lot of questions. Are we done with them?
No. Never.
I'm still laughing. Let's listen to some racing game stuff.
I'm the Broken Meeple, and this is the Starting Tile, where I talk about alternative gateway games that you might not have considered that can be used to introduce new players to our hobby. Hello everyone, the Broken Meeple here, and today, Starting Tile episode 5 is looking at racing games. We all love a good race. Everybody likes to beat somebody, whether it's one person or a whole group of people, in a race from A to B and prove themselves as the victor. It can be a running race, it can be a go-kart race, it can be a horse race, it can be any type of race. Chances are you know somebody who enjoys this type of game. It's a very good category for a gateway game to use. And it doesn't always have to be dreary themes like, Formula 1 and horse racing, although there is a Formula 1 game on this list. But it can also involve weird and wacky themes as well, and my personal favourite racing game is also on this list, and thankfully a gateway game, because, to be fair, there isn't that many racing gateway games to my knowledge. They tend to get a little bit overly complex after a while. So let's kick off with one of the most obvious gateway racing games that there is, and that's Formula D. Now, yes, I said that Formula 1 was a dreary theme. That's just my perspective. If you are anywhere close to a Formula 1 fan, this is the racing gateway game for you. Very simplistic rules and can play up to 10 players in, hopefully, less than an hour. Just make certain people don't take forever on their turn. But you are simply rolling dice depending on what gear you're in, and whatever gear you're in determines the type of dice that you roll, and each die is custom to roll a certain number of spaces, minimum and maximum, for how far you move. Now, of course, in every racing game you've got to deal with corners, and in this one there is a stop rule that requires players to stop once, twice, or maybe even 3 times on a corner in consecutive turns or face a penalty. And of course, things don't always go as planned. You might miss your roll, you might bump into other cars, get blocked by other players, have to brake heavily or downshift. There's a lot of cool things, and it does capture a Formula 1 racing game quite well for something that is essentially using dice as its major mechanic. If you like any type of generic car or Formula 1 racing game, this is a no-brainer for you, and you should already have it in your collection. And now for my personal favourite racing game, and that is Snowtails, Husky Dog Sled Racing. I love husky dogs, I love that breed of dog, they're just so cute! But that aside, the game is great fun. You've got modular track pieces that fit together to form different courses, and you have your dog decks of cards between numbers 1 to 5, and the idea is that you have 2 dogs in front and a brake system. You play 1 or more cards every turn on the dogs and the brake to determine your overall speed. It's a little bit of maths, it's 3 plus 2 minus 3 equals your speed. But as with Formula Day, you have to slow down for corners. You have hazards like trees and chasms and ice walls and stuff to do. But the cool thing is that if you keep your dogs in sync, you move forwards at a faster rate. But if you keep them out of sync, then your sled drifts because one dog pulls faster than the other. And it's really cool how it uses this movement mechanism to get yourself around the track. And you can pull off some great turns if you plan ahead for corners to come or hazards to come. And of course, you can block each other and get up to all sorts of antics. And occasionally, you might crash so often that you're out of the race, and it's just hilarious to do. Snowtails is my personal favourite of the three I've just mentioned, and definitely worth checking out in its second edition format, released by Fragor Games. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this segment. My name is Luke from the Broken Meeple, and I welcome you to the hobby. The starting tile is laid out, the drinks and snacks are ready. Let the games begin.
And now, another tale of board gaming horror.
Oh my, that's horrific.
Gather round, children. I, my wife, and another couple have been gaming for a few years now. Just various games when the mood is right and our schedules line up. One night, after a glorious game of viticulture and the 3 bottles of wine to really set in the theme, we discussed the idea of trying Pandemic Legacy. None of us had ever played a legacy game before, and I and my friend, being into the board gaming hobby, obviously heard all the buzz about Pandemic Legacy. After a short discussion, we decided to invest in a copy of the game and commit to playing through Season 1. Oh, don't worry. There are no spoilers here. Needless to say, we loved the game. Play session after play session were kept fresh and exciting with the changes and events throughout the game. The experience of playing through this game was one of the best gaming experiences we ever had. Until the last play session in December. We played the first part of December and lost. However, we really set ourselves up well to succeed in our next game that month, so we still felt good about the loss, all things considered. We decided to push on through the night and conclude this amazing gaming experience of Pandemic Legacy, as we were already planning and plotting the strategies to win next time anyway. The next hour flew by quickly as we played at the peak of our collaborative minds. 3 of us concentrated on the objectives needed to win, while the medic did a great job of controlling the disease cubes throughout the board. Everything was going great, even though we had already incurred 5 outbreaks. It came to my turn, and we only had one city that had 3 disease cubes on it, Bangkok. I was able to get down to Bangkok and remove 1 cube, so we were sitting fairly well with just 2 cubes on Bangkok. We went into the player draw phase, and I drew the last card we needed of a certain color to meet the last objective. Hooray! We all shouted and plotted the next 3 turns that would guarantee us a victory for the game, and thus win Season 1. We were so excited, however. This feeling would not last long. The next card I flipped over was an epidemic card. This really didn't lower our spirits that much, as we had already, through our hard work, eradicated 2 of the diseases, and there were no cards in the infect deck that would cause an outbreak from flipping them over. There were 10 cards in the discard pile, and the infect rate was 3. 7 of the cards were black and yellow cards, the ones we eradicated. I picked up the deck of the infect cards, and after studying the board for a moment, I said, well, as long as Ho Chi Minh City isn't on the bottom, we should be fine. And what are the odds of that? With that comment, I began to seal our collaborative fates. As I flipped over the bottom card, there it was. Ho Chi Minh City. This caused 3 cubes to be placed in the city, and since there was already 1 cube on Ho Chi Minh City, it outbroke to Bangkok, which now had 3 cubes on it once more. The outbreak track moved to 6. It's okay. It's okay. We only have to draw 3 cards, and if we get through this, we can send the medic down to both cities and take care of this next turn. No problem. I shuffled the Infect discard deck and placed the 11 cards back on top of the Infect deck pile. I revealed them one by one. Karachi. Sweet, already eradicated. Johannesburg. All right, eradicated as well, just one more. Ho Chi Minh City. Our hearts all sank as we looked and realized the outbreak in Ho Chi Minh City, followed by the outbreak at Bangkok, caused our outbreak track to move to the end of the line and immediately end the game. This was the end of Season 1 of Pandemic Legacy, and we just could not believe our hard work and commitment over the past 4.5 months had all ended in a loss. We did look at the next few turns that would have happened in the future, and it was true that only 3 turns later we would have won the game, if only Ho Chi Minh City was not drawn. We were heartbroken. Afterwards, I did calculate the odds of drawing Ho Chi Minh City from the bottom of the Infect deck, and then again at the top of the Infect deck. It was a 1 out of 38 chance, or just under 3% to draw it from the bottom of the deck, followed by a 1 out of 11 chance, or about 9% once on top of the Infect deck. If I did my calculations correctly, this comes to roughly a 1 in 418, or roughly 0.24% chance this event would happen in the way it did. Once I calculated the odds, I was even more heartbroken. Ho Chi Minh City!
I don't think the city's that bad.
Good.
What, you okay there, sir?
Yeah, just leaned a little too far back in the chair, that's all.
Sometimes you shouldn't calculate your odds after a game because then it makes you feel worse.
Never tell me the odds.
I'll tell you the odds if I want to tell you the odds. Sometimes
Never
I
tell
will
me the
stop. It always irritates Sam, I think. I'll be like, all right, hang on a second.
Let me get out the calculator.
Before we go any farther, what is the chance of us doing this? Then he always does make that quote. Then I turn to C-3PO because I'm going to tell him now. Now that he said,
exactly.
Don't tell me. Alrighty, let's jump into some more games. Here we go.
Hello, and welcome to the Solo Game Corner. And look who's here. It's Derek Davis.
Yo gamers, this is Derek from the What Did You Play This Week podcast, and welcome back to the Solo Game Corner. I have a weekly meetup with my friends at work called the Games for Lunch. Recently, a big hit for the group has been Celestia, and this game is hilarious and fun, cultivating great stories. Now in Celestia, you are all passengers on an airship trying to get to the highest cloud and find the rarest treasure. Each turn a passenger becomes a captain, rolls dice, and determines whether or not there are sufficient and correct cards in hand to stave off the challenges of the dice. Meanwhile, the passengers for the turn are busy deciding whether or not they will journey on or bail and take the treasure. It is a push-your-luck game at its core, but there are key moments in which you can make a decision to jump ship that greatly increase your chances of winning. It's fast, it's fun, and it has some great moments that make you want to throw your cards on the table in either triumph or disgust. Unfortunately, there are very few solo games that accomplish the push-your-luck mechanic well. Dungeon Roll and others like it offer very little challenge or strategy, but a recent release by Victory Point Games has provided a push-your-luck style game with enough strategic meat to make it a fun solo experience. The game is Healthy Heart Hospital. Now I know Eric was not enamored with it, which I completely understand, but let me explain why this is such a fun solo experience that employs a push-your-luck mechanic expertly. In Healthy Heart Hospital, you and up to 4 others take on the role of a hospital administrator and 4 doctors. Through 9 rounds, this team will admit patients into triage, transfer them to the infirmary, operating room, clinic, etc., hire new staff, train current staff, build and upgrade expansions for the hospital, attempt to cure patients, and even dispose of the bodies if your attempts at healing fail. The goal of the game is to keep the hospital running and gain enough prestige to reassure the public that Healthy Heart Hospital is a respectable institution. But if you fill up your morgue too quickly or you do not have the money to pay the litigation fees for each death, the hospital will be closed down. The central system of this game is a bag full of cubes representing 5 different kinds of maladies: yellow, gray, green, red, and blue, and the unforeseen consequences of the maladies: black. There are 16 of the 5 malady colors and 8 black cubes. Each round begins with pulling a number of cubes for each entry point into the hospital, which there are 2, and you pull between 4 and 7 for each. These cubes represent one patient for each color. After these patients have arrived, it's time for you to work your healing magic. This is where the strategy and the push your luck come in. You remove cubes from the same bag in an attempt to heal a patient. Each cube that matches the color of the patient succeeds. Each black cube raises them a level. If they get to 5, they die. Each doctor also has some sort of bonus, most of them being a bonus that allows them to draw extra cubes to heal patients. So every cube that has been pulled gives you more knowledge about the probability of healing a patient. For instance, if 10 red cubes are already visible, healing a red patient is probably a bad decision. But here's where the strategy comes in. For every cube you draw with a bonus ability, you can put that number of cubes from the discard pile back into the bag. So if you desperately need to heal red, you can use your bonuses from another healing, say green, to move 2 and sometimes 4 red cubes back into the bag, increasing the likelihood that you will be able to heal a red patient with your next action. And here is where the push your luck mechanic really shines. Every time you attempt to heal, you draw the standard number of cubes hoping for the best. But then you have to decide, do I want to use my bonuses? They would help a lot, but if I draw a black cube, the current patient might die. These moments in the game present amazing decisions with high stakes and high rewards, and often make you want to shake your head in disgust or raise your hands in triumph. So if you're looking for a solo or cooperative game that provides a great push your luck experience, take a look at Healthy Heart Hospital.
You're listening to the Dice Tower Network, the home of smart people, insightful board gaming commentary, and the Party Gamecast. Find out more at dicetowernetwork.com.
Every game has a story, and this is one of them. Presenting Biography of a Board Game with your host, Professor Scott Rogers.
This time I want to talk about a board game without a board, the abstract strategy game Hive. In 1982, British carpenter John Yanni was watching a film in which 2 old friends were playing chess. The 2 would meet every day at the park. One player would bring the black pieces and half of the board, while the other would bring the white pieces and the other half. As Yanni watched the movie, he was struck with an idea to create a game like chess, but without the board, that could be played just about anywhere and still have a lot of depth and strategy. Inspired, Yanni created a prototype made of tiles. On each of the tiles was a symbol: rat, dragon, stone, king, and pig. But when he played it, he was dissatisfied with the results. He says, "I was thinking in square tiles like a chessboard, and I wanted a game that would work without a game board, where the pieces became the board." Yanni forgot about his prototype until the year 2000, when he was working on his computer and created a hexagonal shape, and the chess game flooded back into his mind. He hand-carved wooden hexagons on which he applied insect stickers. The game consisted of only 16 pieces, represented by 5 insects: the grasshopper, an ant, a spider, beetle, and a queen bee. Like chess, each piece has a unique movement style. For example, the ant can move around the perimeter, while the beetle can climb on top of the other tiles. As the player places pieces, they create a hive-like structure, which gives the game its name. Yanni took his new prototype to a local gaming club and got such a good response that he created 1,000 copies of Hive under his own publishing label, Gen 42 Games. He created the game with the help of a local cabinet maker, and the game sold faster than Yanni could produce them. He took Hive to the Essen Game Show in 2002. His booth neighbors warned him that he should not be discouraged if he sold only 20 to 30 games. They ended up selling over 400. Hive won the International Gamers Award in 2003 and the Mensa Select in 2006, as well as Dr. Toy's Best Smart Play Award. Hive has been published in 9 different languages, including Portuguese, where the game is known as Bug. After Hive's release, 3 additional expansion tiles were released: the Mosquito in 2007, the Ladybug in 2010, and the Pillbug in 2013. A black and white version called Hive Carbon was released in 2009 as a companion for the iPhone and iPod Touch version of the game. A smaller travel edition called Hive Pocket was released in 2010. In 2015, a Wall Street Journal article asked the question, "Is Hive the next chess?" Randy Ingersoll, the 2011 online Hive champion, seems to think so. He wrote and published Play Hive Like a Champion: Strategies, Tactics, and Commentary, a 241-page textbook about playing Hive, which teaches original strategies like the hop around and the 2-beetle attack. With its elegant visual design and simple yet in-depth gameplay, Hive is a game crawling with possibilities. Next time, we'll look at the spooky game invented by one of the giants of the board gaming industry, the children's game Which Witch.
Until next time, this has been Biography of a Board Game with your host, Professor Scott Rogers.
It's time for the Dice Tower's Question of the Week, sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., in which our team of gaming experts answers one of your questions, thus increasing the odds that someone will get it right. This week's question: how do you deal with an obnoxious gamer in a game store?
Hi everyone, Luke from the Broken Meeple, and this is quite a touchy subject, but if you're going to get loud, obnoxious people at a board game store or cafe, as opposed to a pub obviously, then the best thing I can suggest is simply speak to the owner of the cafe. If they are adamant about having a nice pleasant atmosphere for families and people of all ages to come and game, then it's in their best interest to deal with these kinds of people, and they can approach them and say, look, seriously, you need to quieten down or keep it together, that sort of thing. You know, it's not just for you, it's for all the people here. And if they continue to be loud and obnoxious, they have the power to ban them. If they do nothing about it, then maybe you need to question just how good this game store really is to go and game in. So that's the best thing I can say.
Hey everyone, this is Tim Jeanette the Metal Meeple, and thankfully I don't have to deal with obnoxious people a lot since we play at my house. But when we do play or have played in stores or played at conventions, I think the biggest type of people we run into with that are people who are being overly excited with what they do, such as Arkham Horror. They're rolling dice and they're trying to do some kind of cooperative thing, and they're screaming and yelling, standing up, beating on the table and stuff. And that's fine, but if you continually do it and people around you are playing something like Splendor or a strategic game, you know, it's just not very fun for them. So best case, talk to the event organizer or the store owner, see if they can address it. Otherwise, I just walk up and say, hey, you know, we're trying to do this stuff. Can you chill out a little bit?
This is Professor Scott Rogers of Biography of a Board Game. And how do I deal with loud, obnoxious people at the game store? I find that a little courtesy goes a long way. I'll talk to the person and ask them to please cut down on the vulgar language or whatever the offense may be. But if that doesn't work, I ask the owner of the store if they can intervene, and remind everybody that they're there to have fun.
This is Roy from Epic Gaming Night, and it really depends on the situation. If it was an event I was organizing, I would make sure to take them aside and talk to them about being overly obnoxious or overly loud, and just make sure what the situation is. If it's a different group that's not part of the event that I'm taking place at, I would talk to the store owner or store organizer to figure out what's going on. And maybe we just need to take a step back, and if someone's trying to have fun, make sure not to interrupt other people's fun.
Tony and Marty, rolling dice, taking names. Oh, you know, obnoxious people, I know exactly how I deal with them. I leave the store. Yeah, I know that seems kind of drastic, but that's what works for me, Marty.
Yeah, here's the thing. If they're not sitting at my table and I can't interact with them directly, I'm the same with you. I'm not going to say anything. I'm probably going to get up and leave, which will probably hurt the store overall. So hopefully the store owner would step in and say something.
Hey, Derek here. Now, if you're dealing with someone in a game group that's loud and obnoxious, or really in any group for that matter, the method I always follow is toleration, socialization, confrontation. What I mean by this is toleration. Allow them to feel welcome, to come in, to be comfortable and exist in the group. 2, socialization. Help them understand that this is actually a group of people, not just them as an individual interacting with the world, and they need to be aware of other people and how they feel. 3, confrontation. If it becomes abusive and demeaning, then it needs to be confronted, and the person needs to understand that they will have to change their behavior or they will be asked to leave the group.
Jonathan from the Snakes Cast. I'm not sure if this will come as a surprise, but we actually don't get a whole lot of disruptively loud and obnoxious people at Snakes and Lattes. Groups of guests tend to police their own. They don't want to be embarrassed by someone in their group making a scene, so any problems tend to kind of take care of themselves. But in those rare cases where someone is making it hard for other guests to enjoy themselves, we gently explain it to them, and for the most part that's enough. I wonder if that would work as well in a store as it does in the cafe.
I think my answer is similar to everyone else's here.
Well, go ahead and say your answer. I don't think it's similar, but I'll tell you.
Well, I mean, usually the real issue for me would be when people are having almost too much fun. You know, when you're sort of in your bubble around your table and everything is exciting for you guys, but there's somebody else next to you who, even if it's more than just, you know, we're trying to be very serious and play this game. That's not necessarily the case. Sometimes it's just that people are being really loud, scream, oh yeah, you know, it's just it's hard physically to be next to that sometimes. And my approach would be to, ask politely if they could just, be cognizant of other people first. And then if that doesn't work, then you should be talking with the owner. But, approaching the culprits first is probably the best approach, because if you go straight to the owner, that can sometimes, I'm going to go tell Dad. It's sort of can bring a bad vibe to the whole thing. That would be my approach.
I got to say, I do disagree with the rolling dice taking names guys.
Just leaving?
Well, they said they leave, and that's fine. I mean, you have your prerogative to do that, but I don't believe that will change anything. The owner's not going to go, oh, those people made people leave. In fact, I found a lot of friendly local gaming store owners. It really bothers me. They will let one person chase a lot of people away before they say anything because they want to avoid confrontation that much.
Right.
For me, if the owner's not anywhere around, I'm going to deal with it right then and there. I'm going to go talk to the person and say, guys, can you stop? Can you calm down a little bit? Because usually for me, obnoxious is like someone just shouting really loudly, and usually it's vulgarities mixed with it.
Yeah.
Being excited about a game doesn't bother me. I mean, I'm glad you're excited about a game. But, that whole, hey, come on now, there's other people here playing too. You need to keep that in mind. Usually that works because most people don't have someone come say something to them. The problem is a lot of people do not like confronting folks. And I really think in that case you should just go to the owner if possible. Because not everyone likes to do that. I'm a pretty outgoing person, and even I'm getting kind of like, oh man, I got to deal with these guys. That's what I think. But I'll tell you what, if you don't deal with it, it will make more people leave than stay.
That's true.
The rolling dice guys already left.
Right.
And
They're all gone.
those guys are super fun to play with.
I mean,
you don't want them leaving.
You almost need to. If you're going to leave, you should at least tell the store owner why, right?
Yeah, that's true. I think so. Like, those guys are just being annoying. I'm going to have to leave. I apologize. Yeah. At least then, usually when you do that, they'll be like, oh, no, I'll take care of it. And if they don't, then leave. I'll leave with you then.
Yeah. I mean, and often, sometimes people can get carried away in the heat of the moment. I think this is a worse issue if it's an ongoing thing. If there's always somebody in the back that's getting carried away over the course of several weeks, that's when you really have a problem.
Well, it is late.
So it is late.
We're going to end this show because this is one of the longest we've ever recorded. But that's because we record 2 shows back to back. But that's okay. Next show, UK Gaming Expo. Woo! I'm trying to put our schedules up for all our different conventions on our forums and pinning those so you can go to our forums and see like how to find us. What are we doing? What's our schedule so you can run into us. So keep an eye out there. At this point, I have at least UK Gaming Expo and Origins up and ready to go. We'll have Gen Con probably up very soon too. So anyhow, let's finish this up. Until next time, I'm Tom Vessel.
I'm Eric Summerer.
We're not obnoxious. And you've been listening to The Dice Tower.
Thanks for listening. Promotional consideration has been provided by game publishers in the form of review copies of games. This episode, number 460, was recorded on May 19th, 2016. Coming up next week, Tom and Sam team up once again on the podcast at the UK Gaming Expo. This podcast is sponsored by listeners like you. Thank you for your continued support. And speaking of support, the Jack Vassell Memorial Fund is dedicated to providing support to members of the board gaming community in their hour of need. If a catastrophic event has turned your game upside down, find out how we can help at jackvassell.org. The Dice Tower is produced by Tom and me, with assistance from Jason Thompson, Itai Perez, Eric Matthews, and Rob Searing. Blackbird Disarmament provided by Crow No Spear. Timothy Pinkham composed our theme, and hosting is provided by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games at great prices at coolstuffinc.com. Let us know what you think of the show by posting to the Dice Tower Guild at BoardGameGeek.com, following the Dice Tower on Twitter, or by emailing us at dicetower@gmail.com. And don't forget to visit the other shows in the Dice Tower network, including The Broken Meeple, Flip the Table, On Board Games, The Game Pit, The Party Game Cast, Board Games Insider, and Board Game University. Find out more at dicetowernetwork.com. Until next time, from all the gang at the Dice Tower, have fun gaming. So what British delicacy are you most excited to try?
Fish and chips, man.
Huh?
I'm super excited. I've heard my whole life about fish and chips. I mean, I've eaten chips, but I heard they're different in England.
Okay.
I'm excited.
I look forward to hearing all about it.
You will.